Welcome back, everybody. Okay, so we talked yesterday about likely Vezina winners or leaders at this stage of the season because it's around the halfway mark, so why not? And we discussed Calder as well. Now I would like to discuss the Hart Trophy, which is the most contentious trophy in the National Hockey League. It is, and this year, it's going to be a huge issue because somebody's going to win that hasn't played against most of the teams in the league. That's guaranteed. And so there's going to be an argument of, well, they padded their stats against poor teams, or, well, look, they didn't have to play this team, or, well, this season doesn't count because, or it was a short season and over an 82-game season, things would have been different because, and so those arguments will continue until we get into next season, and then people just kind of forget about it. So, anyways, when we look at likely contenders for the Hart, you have to look at the top scorers because that's likely where it goes. We can have the debate about whether or not that's fair some other time, but that is usually where it goes, where your Hart Trophy will go to one of the highest scoring players in the league. And Conor Mcdavid, with 45 points in 27 games, 15 goals, 30 assists, he won the Hart in 2017. I think he probably is the contender, the top guy for the Hart right now. But Patrick Kane, it is so tough to overlook Patrick Kane in this because if Chicago makes the playoffs, I really think Kane wins it. 27 games, 11 goals, 27 assists, 38 points. Kane last won the Hart in 2016. So it would be interesting to see Kane win it again. I think Patrick Kane, if you look at the two, Conor McDavid, every time he's on the ice, he makes things happen. Kane, the same thing. So they're close that way. And again, because they're in different divisions, they play against different teams, and they play for different teams that play different styles. It is tough to just say, well, McDavid has more points and more goals, so therefore he's the key guy. Because McDavid has Draisaitl. 27 games, 11 goals, 26 assists, 37 points. Now, I will say before Oiler fans get upset, I'm not saying they're on the same line. They're not. I'm saying that if you're a team playing against the Oilers, you have to worry about Draisaitl and you have to worry about McDavid. So it's multiple threats. You don't just have to shut down one. But if you're going to use that argument with Kane, it kind of feels like a slap in the face to Alex DeBrincat. There's this amazing synergy between the two of them. And DeBrincat's not on the board because I couldn't think of a way to argue DeBrincat over Kane. I really couldn't. Draisaitl's on the board because he's got 37 points. Anybody with 30 or more I have on the board. And Draisaitl's the defending Hart Trophy winner. Now, again, I don't see Draisaitl having that big difference that he had. That he's not driving the game this year in the same manner as he did last year for Edmonton, which is not an insult. It's just it's hard to follow up a season like that with another. And he's got the 11 goals, same as Kane, 1 point less than Kane. But again, the driving force of most plays for Chicago is around Kane. And so I would lean towards Kane over Draisaitl, even though statistically they are very close to one another. And Kane and McDavid, to me, that's your two-horse race. But let's look at the others. Mitch Marner, 27 games, 10 goals, 25 assists, 35 points. What hurts Marner's case is going to be, well, he's passing the puck to Matthews, or he's passing the puck to Tavares when Matthews is out. Which means, I guess, then you could overlook Matthews' 20 goals in 24 games. Matthews has 20 goals, 13 assists, 33 points in 24 games. And so Marner and Matthews you could look at as canceling each other out. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that. I could definitely see Matthews getting votes, especially if he ends up scoring 45 goals this year. So if he ends up playing, say, 50 games, right around there, because he's having the wrist issue and he's out of practice today. But if he ends up playing about 50 games, if he gets between 40 and 45 goals, he will get votes for the Hart. He likely ends up winning the Rocket Richard Trophy for sure, but he will get Hart votes. I don't think he outpaces McDavid. I don't think he outpaces Kane. And of course, the big question mark for a lot of these players is going to be playoffs. Toronto, we know, is going to the playoffs. Edmonton should be in the playoffs. Chicago, surprisingly enough, right now, they should be favored to make the playoffs. They look like they're going to get there. So if the Oilers were to fall out of the playoffs, that might hurt the case for McDavid or for Draisaitl. If Chicago falls out of the playoffs, it might hurt the case for Patrick Kane, and that's just how that voting works. If you're going to vote for an MVP of the league, normally you will vote for a guy who's the best player, the most key player for a team that made the playoffs. And I understand that. There are some people that disagree, but I understand why the voting's set up that way. Jonathan Huberdeau's an interesting case. 25 games, 10 goals, 20 assists, 30 points. And again, you've got that great duo of him and Barkov, right? And now you've added Hornquist, and it's so explosive for Florida right now. They look like not only a playoff team, but they might be very dangerous in said playoffs. But Huberdeau has emerged as probably the best player in Florida, and one of the most unheralded players in the league, because, again, and I've talked about this in videos, for all the discussion about how underrated Barkov is, I think it's Huberdeau now that's the underrated one. I think Barkov, we all understand how good he is and how solid he is in every zone and what he can do. I think now we're starting to find out just how good Jonathan Huberdeau really is. He's fantastic. Anzai Kopitar. Kings fans will say, if the Kings make the playoffs, Kopitar will get votes. And they're right. Anzai Kopitar, 24 games, 6 goals, 24 assists, 30 points. The time off definitely helped him. It helped Dustin Brown, and it helped Drew Doughty. And I would think of the three, Kopitar would be seen as the MVP. And if the Kings did somehow manage to get their way into that number 4 spot in the West, Kopitar would get his share of the votes. Would I put Kopitar ahead of Kane? No. If they both make the playoffs, I think it goes to Kane. But this is why I enjoy making these videos for discussion. So others that aren't players with 30 points that could get into this discussion or are already in it. David Pasternak's only played 16 games, but he's had 11 goals, 10 assists, 21 points. It makes a huge difference to the attack for the Boston Bruins when he's in there. It's night and day when he's in there to when he's not. And that's kind of where the Hart Trophy comes into it, which is, okay, so who makes the biggest difference? Who's the most important player to his team? And you could make that argument that Pasternak's there. He would have to play in every game from here going forward, and he would have to score a ton of goals and points to really get that attention, but he's up there. Mark Stone in Vegas. You could make the argument for Mark Stone, and I couldn't make the argument against it. Great two-way player, great at takeaways. His assists are fantastic, and he has 6 goals to go with him. 6 goals, 21 assists, 27 points in 21 games. I think Stone's going to get his share of votes, but his own teammate could end up undercutting him. We'll come back to that. Tammy Paneran, who's now at practice with the Rangers, 14 games, 5 goals, 13 assists, 18 points. Again, if the Rangers can get hot, if he's a big part of it, he will garner some attention. He was a finalist last year. He will garner some attention this year as well, if they're able to go on some kind of a run. Philadelphia, underrated players. How about Sean Couturier? 13 games, 6 goals, 10 assists, 16 points. Again, he can't miss any more time if he's going to get any kind of consideration. The Flyers have to have a pretty good record, and he'd have to do some spectacular stuff, but I think he's the MVP for that team. I think Couturier, and I've said this for years, you can go back and find me talking up Couturier and how important I think he is to the Flyers. When he's going, the Flyers seem to win. When he's struggling, the Flyers seem to struggle. So while some in the media might want to blame Voracek when things aren't going well, to me it's always been, is Couturier going? If he is, so are the Flyers. Nick Baxtrom. And here's why Nick Baxtrom, I think, would get some attention. 25 games, 10 goals, 19 assists, 29 points. He's outscoring Ovechkin. He's out-goal-scoring Ovechkin. And I really think that there are times where a player who's known primarily for his assists can come into his own as an all-around great player and garner attention. It's going to mean Washington finishing first in the East or somewhere in that region. It's going to mean that he has to keep up that kind of pace and score at least, I would say, 22 to 25 goals. And if Ovechkin stays cold, by Ovechkin's standards, by human standards, he's still fine. But by Ovechkin standards, if he stays at around the 25 goal pace for this year, if he ends up with like 18 goals and Baxtrom gets like 25, Baxtrom will get attention. Absolutely. Of everybody on that Washington roster, I think he's their MVP. And you have to mention Nathan McKinnon for Colorado, because Colorado is expected to go on some sort of a run at some point soon, 19 games, 5 goals, 17 assists, 22 points. He has not been playing like Nathan McKinnon. He has not been playing like he did last season. So now he's been out of the lineup. He's rested himself up. He's healed himself up. We'll see when he's come back into the lineup tonight whether or not he gets back into the conversation with some of the guys at the top of this list. But what if the NHL decided to do something crazy? What if they decided defensemen are important too? There hasn't been a defenseman that has won the Hart Trophy since 2000 when Chris Pronger did it. So you look at the Tampa Bay roster, right? You can make an argument for Andrei Vasilevsky. Absolutely, you can make the argument he's their MVP. And if they do that, he will be the first goaltender to win that award since 2015 when Carey Price did it. But Hedman, 24 games, 5 goals, 20 assists, 25 points. I would argue he has been the MVP of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning, one of the best teams in the league, defending Stanley Cup champions. I could see Hedman, Kane, and McDavid being the top three. But we cannot forget what Marc-Andre Fleury has done with the Vegas Golden Knights. So I've talked about him for the Vezina. His numbers are fantastic. And yes, Mark Stone has also been MVP level for the Vegas Golden Knights. But Marc-Andre Fleury, I think, undercuts him. I think that as much as Stone would get attention, Fleury, Hedman, Kane, McDavid. If we had to do 4, and you say, okay, so who would be the most likely 4? Based on right now, right around the halfway mark of the season, Fleury's in there. To me, Hedman's in there, which would be a departure from forwards always being the MVPs. And it's weird because when you think about it, your ice time leader is always a defenseman other than the goaltender. The goaltender plays more time on the ice than the defenseman or the forwards. And poor goaltending will very often be the undoing of a team, and great goaltending can get you a Stanley Cup. So it makes sense to me that goaltenders should get more nominations than they do. And defensemen definitely deserve more respect than they've had, where you have to go all the way back to Chris Pronger in 2000, where he had an absolutely ridiculous season in order to win the Hart Trophy that year. So could they go to Hedman as the first defenseman to win it in 21 years? Or is it just between Kane and McDavid? Or is Fleury in this? And again, I know there's other players that aren't on the board. I know there's a lot of other guys who aren't on the board because I want to keep the conversation to the ones that are most likely, I think, in my eyes, to get that consideration, to get those votes, and to maybe end up winning the trophy. Let me know who you think should win the Hart this year in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And yeah, I'm wearing Oilers because McDavid, Draisaitl. This is actually, before anybody asks, it's a Sheldon Surrey jersey. So 44, I want to make sure people know it's not a Pronger. So because Pronger's on the board. And the other most recent MVPs, which is weird because Kucherov's out for the year, 2019. Hall, 2018. He's in Buffalo now. He's switched 2 teams since he won it. Price, 2015. Crosby, 2014. 7 years since he won the MVP. Ovechkin hasn't won it in 8. Malkin hasn't won it in 9. There's Corey Perry in 2011. And, of course, as I said, Pronger, because I wanted to put the most recent defenseman to win it. And I kind of had a reaction of, wow, it's been 21 years. That's a long time. But yeah, there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys again soon.